This band released possibly our favorite record of last year. I mean, it was in our album of the year list. I think it finished second, perhaps, but
I was going to say, was it album of the year? I can't remember.
I think it finished
It
just
was.
second. Nah, just second. I think Heraldic Blades was first. But
Ah,
yeah,
correct.
it was a debut from Danish black and heavy metal. I mean, it's the most unique. It was one of the most unique records that came out last year. Scimitarium I. They are back with a follow up full length entitled Scimitarium II.
Would you believe it?
So the debut was so unique, so good, and it's hard for bands to kind of keep that going and like follow up such a strong debut, Mike. I'm going to ask you, do you think they've done it with this one?
Right, first off, this album came out today. So me and John have only heard it today, right?
Yep. Give the illusion.
You never know.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, no, but we're releasing the episode today. Oh, what do you think? You think that we might have had like advanced copies? So, but my point being, though, I think it's quite hard to judge on this amount of time with it because this is an album. They're one of those bands. I think there's quite a lot to their sound and quite a lot going on that I think you do need a little bit of time to ingest whether it is better than what they did. And I did listen today, a bit of a back to back with both of them to compare because, in my opinion, they're quite different in a way.
In a way, I'd like to hear why you think so.
A lot of it for me is production. I think the productions is probably the main part that really changes the vibe of the album. You listen to, especially when you're comparing the two, you listen to the new one, and it's a lot more dense. It's a lot more produced, bigger sounding. The guitars are heavier. The drums have much more of a production to them. Whereas when you listen to the first album, it maybe, and I don't mean this in a negative way at all, it almost sounds a bit thinner, a bit. It's got almost like a vintage analog sort of vibe to the production. And I think the band on this second album as well, quite focused in on maybe some more intensity and a bit more chaos in their sound as well, which you don't. I don't know whether it's just a production difference, but you don't really hear that as much in the album that came out before. So I basically, the jury's out of me. I don't know if it's better or not. How about you? That was quite a long-winded way of saying that, wasn't it?
3 minutes to say I don't know, but I liked the points. I agree with most of the points. I think there was still a lot of chaos and that feel in the first record was here with the second. I agree that the production is boosted up slightly, but I still think there is a kind of
More than slightly.
but I still don't think it sounds like overproduced or silly. I think there's still an analog kind of feel to it in a way, and I think
Do you know what it reminds me of? It makes me. It's got that vibe that they've gone and recorded it with Kurt Ballou.
I wouldn't go that far.
I think it has more. I think, especially when you compare it to the one before.
I mean, maybe. Do you think then they've lost a sense of that like blackened sound because a lot of that did come through the thinness of the first record?
I feel like the first album had that kind of blackened psych pop kind of vibe. I don't feel that is so much the sound on this album as much as it was on the other one. I feel like there's some parts of the band sound that's not as prevalent in this album as there is in the first one, but it's almost been replaced with other things that makes it great in its own right. For me, they're just a bit. There's a bit of a difference there. I find it hard to necessarily say which one's better than the other.
Yeah, there is a difference, but it's still very much Scimitar. Like they have such a unique sound and such a unique take on instrumentation. And it's still, and they're like signature. There's like signature things that they do. Like a lot of their like riffing style and like the way that like the guitar and the bass will sort of play off each other and counter melody and take it in turns to almost be the lead at some points. They carried those Scimitar isms over, which I think makes it coherent. But you're right, it is different in the sense that I think the chaos and heaviness is amped up, but also
Mm,
the I don't want to say subdued, but the softer side is almost amped up as well, because you've got a track here that is pretty much slow and soft all the way through, isn't
yeah.
there? Which they didn't really have on the previous record, I don't believe.
No, but it was more a part of their overall sound
Yeah.
on on that one instead.
Do you think this is going to make them potentially a bit more popular with the I don't want to say mainstream, but
Yeah,
have more appeal to?
yeah, yeah, I do. I think you're gonna get, I think they're gonna get a lot more new listeners, or maybe people that are into not necessarily black metal. I don't think you need that. I don't think you ever really need that to listen to this band. But I think outside of that scene, if you're into like, I think people are into like hardcore and stuff, not necessarily straight like fast hardcore, but like that more slightly experimental
Yeah.
type of it. I think would like this album.
There was shades, there's shades of Dillinger Escape Plan, and there is
Yeah,
shades of
I think Shades of Converge in there.
Converge, also Mars Volta slash At the Drive-In. There's
Hmm.
vibes of that. So yeah, I can see your point where like someone who's into that kind of more arty experimental side of hardcore would take from this. But there is like a really there is blackened elements in. There's a lot of tremolo riffs. There's
Hmm.
blast beats all over the place. But there is also a lot of like heavy metal riff going on in here as well. It's a really unique. Again, they've managed to create like a really unique album
Yeah.
in like a sea of. There's just so much music now, and to release something with such a unique sound, but able to do it twice while still being new is quite exceptional.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's that's part of what makes it great, is that it does feel like a bit of an evolution from the last album, and one that took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting it to ramp up in that regards, like the heaviness. One thing I think this album has lost a little bit over the first one is there's not as many hooks vocally
Yeah,
as what you heard on that. And often you expect with bands when they have that's the bit that does amp up on the next release, is they maybe go down more of the path of vocal hooks and things like that. And I don't think they have on this one. I don't think it's really got that thing to it which the first album did.
I do agree. Like the hooks on the first record were infectious almost immediately. There
Mm.
are hooks because I've done this maybe 3 or 4 times this morning. Like I have had it on a lot,
Yeah. Same.
and there are hooks that once you get into it, they do start becoming a bit more apparent. But straight off the gate, straight out the gate, I do agree that it's not the front and center which maybe the previous album had, but I still did have a really, really, really good time with this.
Yeah, me too. Me
The
too.
fact,
I think it's a real special album again.
yeah, the instrumentation on display is, like I said, like next level. It's unbelievable. But it's like the
Mhm.
songwriting. It never feels. They're able to like shift and turn and like speed up, slow down, like change so many different ways and have so many different ideas. But it never sounds weird or forced. There's nothing forced about this. Everything's really organic and like flows really
No.
well. So I guess, Mike, we've been going for 10 minutes. We haven't even really got into the album. The first song is called Scimitarium II, which is like the first album had a similar introduction. That's a song, didn't it? I feel that this one, it was a bit weirder in that sense that it felt like an introduction. It didn't feel like a song, but it was long enough to be a song. It sat
Yeah, and
somewhere
it
in a
had
weird.
vocals and stuff, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but you're right. It did feel like that. It felt. I mean, it's hard to say this because, as I said, I've listened to the album quite a few times this morning, but I do feel like it's probably one that you're gonna have to spend time with. But I felt like this one maybe wasn't as standout as other tracks on this, because it was in that weird zone between being an intro and a song. And I mean, there was parts of it I really loved the bass playing on this.
yeah,
I thought the counter melody that the bass player was doing, over the guitar was the real shining point of this song. Um, and the rest of it, it wasn't too memorable to me. There wasn't too much standout apart from what the bass was doing.
Yeah, I agree, but like it's one of them ones when you listen to it, and you're like, "This is really cool," but again, like you said, nothing was like really standing out. I think where they really came into it, though, was track two, a reverence warning. This was the
But that
single, I
felt like
believe.
it proper, didn't it? That felt like the album proper. Yeah.
Yeah, so I believe this was the single that came out a week or so ago. The intro is super Dillinger Escape Plan. At first, I think you said this to me, and I didn't hear it at first, but then
Yeah, you just yeah, yeah. I can't believe you keep saying Dillinger Escape Plan when I mentioned it to you when they pre-released this, and you
I said, "Oh, I didn't,
acted
I
like
didn't."
didn't get it at all, at all.
I'd only heard it once, to be fair, but no, I really get it.
Yeah.
Actually, Mike, you sent me a really good voice note of Mike Patton, a Mike Patton vocal that I'd quite like you to fit into this episode somewhere.
Well, we could do it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because we'll get to it because it's in this song, isn't it?
It is in this song. So yeah, the intro is very Dillinger Escape Plan esque, like kind of. It's not off timed or like super. It's just very chaotic, isn't it? And it has like
Yeah.
syncopations and it's
I
just
mean, the
that kind of
drummer's amazing, isn't he? The drummer's
drum,
incredible.
unbelievable. But I mean, the whole band is incredible, man. Because once her vocals come
Mm-hmm.
in, you're like, that is the sound that you fall in love with Scimitar. Like it's just
Yeah.
somehow the guitars are doing like crazy stuff with the bass. The drums are like blasting and filling all the time, and you think, how
Mm.
can you write a melody over this vocally that is just so
Yeah.
it doesn't follow anything, it's its own thing, but it just works so well.
It's a very good point. Yeah, yeah. She does. She's the kind of glue that holds it all together and it gives the band that identity.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah, there was I put it is kind of like a blackened Dillinger Mars Volta, which I think fits this song quite well. But yeah, her vocals actually get a bit more aggressive, which I don't think she did in the previous release. There's a bit more of like a
There's like
growled.
flashes of it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a kind of shouted vocal around halfway, but then she kind of flips back and goes to that more like operatic kind of
Mm.
wailing, which is it's so bizarre but so cool at the same time. And then there's like it goes really discordant around 4 minutes mark. It's like super discordant, but like this lead line manages to keep the melody together, and then they sort of go back into that. I want to say chorus, but you know what I mean. There's
I know the bit you
a
mean. Yeah.
reintroduction of melodies. It's just there's so much going on, but it's so done so
I,
concisely.
I was surprised hearing this because it to me. I picked up on the whole kind of Dillinger mathy thing straight away. So for me, it felt like quite a change
Yeah,
from what they did on the first album, and you can really hear this on this one more than the intro track. The guitars are so much more dense and thick sounding and heavier, if you know what I mean. It sounds a lot heavier in
it
tone.
does. Yeah,
Um, so yeah, very very different. But it's I mean yeah, it's crazy. This song's probably one of the most nuts out of all of it, right? I'd say.
I think so. I think so. I actually think this is my standout song, to be perfectly honest. Or this or the following song. So, track 3, Lunacy Jewels. This is actually like a re-recording of a demo that they did.
Oh, on that 2-track thing they did.
Yes.
I never listened to that. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Have you heard it?
I have, yeah. And then I went back to it today, and that one is a lot more raw and chaotic and like punkier, more black metal. I guess in
Kind of
essence
like to
because
hear that.
it's really cool. But the way that the more like polished version, so to speak,
Mm.
on the album is so. I think the production on this. Maybe this is kind of where you're getting that Kurt Ballou sound, maybe because like the chorus of this is like a gang vocal
Yeah.
in the background, and I was like, oh, that is actually quite Converge when they do that. But it
Yeah,
was,
yeah, yeah.
and they're quite low in the mix, but it was like so impactful. I thought this song was amazing. It was like it felt a bit more straight up. Maybe that's because it's
Yeah.
an older song that they've sort of redone, but it the energy just didn't stop with this song.
No. No, this was one of my highlights as well. There was a great riff. Was it about 3 minutes something? There was like a
Yeah,
slower,
it's like a
like
heavy
metal
metal.
riff.
Yeah,
It was great, man. That was probably the highlight riff of the album for me.
Yeah, which is strange, isn't it? Because this was an old song, so
Yeah, but it just shows it doesn't it feels like a band that's, not revisiting old material when you hear this.
no,
Feels
no.
very feels like it really works within the newer songs they've done.
A good riff is a good riff forever,
Absolutely. Wise man.
as a wise man once said. And then at the end, it goes like almost thrashy at the same time. They use that heavy metal type riff, but they have the drum beat completely changes and it goes super thrash, and it's just like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
it was so cool, man. Like really, really cool. Magnetic Venom track 4, the bass. I love what the relationship between the bass and the guitar on this one. The bass was doing really good counter melody to like the tremolo chords. Very chaotic song. This was kind of like what you just more of what you expect from Scimitar. It sort of I don't want to say it was like filler, but it sort of like was an in between track between like maybe my favorite and then 5, which was felt like I don't want to say like a ballad, but it was like a slow song. Do you know what I mean? So this song, I don't really know how to explain it to be perfectly honest with you.
I
It was
really I really love this song. It was one of my it might be one of my favorites on the album. I actually thought, how it starts with more of a kind of simpler kind of driving beat.
Mhm.
Um, I thought it was a really welcome change to have that in there because it felt to me a little bit more like their first album, having something a bit more straight and less chaotic
Mm.
in that sense. So I actually really liked it, and I thought they were doing that, and then he would change it up and bring in some blasts for a bit, then go back onto that beat,
Yeah.
and the sort of the jump between the two. I thought it sounded really organic, and I really liked it. I thought this song was a highlight, one of the highlights in the album.
Yeah, to be honest, when I was saying sort of
I'm slagging it
filler,
off.
yeah, when I was slagging it off, I love this record, and like nothing is filler, but it was just kind of I think because it was there's something so unique after it that stands out, and then my favorite
Yeah.
before it, it kind of got
Yeah,
lost
it
in a
feels like
little
it's sort
bit.
of sandwiched in between, yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. There was moments in this track that would like speed up and slow down. Really, like the drummer would just like do it on a dime, and it would be really really cool. Track 5, yeah. So this is the kind of more interesting one. Through lava lit roads to La Vilenda Part 2. Not quite sure where Part 1
There's
was.
yeah, I looked for part 1, couldn't find part 1.
Couldn't find it. But this is like a softer. I say softer. It was like a cleaner, slower approach.
Mhm.
It was it was interesting. I don't know if it needed to be the whole. The song didn't really change too much, did it?
You had the introduction to drums, didn't you, at one point? Very soft drums that sounded really good. It was a really nice piece of music.
It was, yeah.
And I think they needed something in there like that because otherwise it was going to be quite an intense listen. Um,
Well,
Especially when you go back and listen to their album and realize that there was a lot more kind of cleaner parts and things like that, sort of dotted throughout.
yeah. But it's interesting because this track transitions nicely into the last track, Mobular,
Mm,
um, and which is the longest by some way. It's like
yeah,
13 minutes long, and it almost feels like a continuation of that song. So like the album does flow really nicely from one song into the next. There's a lot of like mixing going on that just sort of morphs into the next track. It doesn't feel like his tracks, you know, different track, different track, different track. The whole album does
mhm.
flow really nicely. But it's interesting where they decided to kind of like almost break up the song because I feel like you could have had 5 and 6 almost be like a 20-minute track in a weird way because there was so much. It was so I don't want to say slow, but there was considering the first half of the album was so chaotic and so fast.
Yeah,
The last two tracks were very slow paced overall. It did feel
that's
like a
so true.
quite a
Yeah,
shift.
yeah. It does. Yeah, it does. I noticed that when listening to it. It was quite weird because yeah, you think of like take away track 1 being the intro ish sort of thing. When you go from tracks 2, 3, and 4, it's quite this intense, chaotic kind of thing, and then the last two, as you said, are like 20 minutes, so
Yeah,
it's like half the album, and the vibe is slightly different. It's sort of slowed right down. Um,
but
and I
great
mean, what
though.
did you think of that, John? Did you like that?
I did like it. It did feel like an end. It felt like an ender. It was. I loved the kind of like more drawn out, slower, almost sleazier
Yeah.
kind of riff. It was like heavy. It almost felt a bit like stoner, or like it had that kind of
Mm.
slower feel to it. The riffs were really cool. I liked the way that they were like able to kind of flip between a few different passages, and then when they brought that like heavier riff back in, it felt like it had a bit more oomph about it, which was really cool. Um, I don't know if it needed to be so long. I think it could have, maybe you could have cut off a few minutes of it, to be perfectly honest. But it did feel like an ender. It did feel like a solid ender.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I'll be honest, it wasn't. I need to spend a bit more time with it. I didn't love it as much as other songs on this.
Mhm.
I don't know. There wasn't too much in it that I can like really pull out of what I enjoyed, if you know what I mean.
It feels
But
like
I
as
get,
we're
but
talking.
it served the purpose, though. Do you know? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good point. I don't know, Mike. It feels like as we're talking, we're sort of. I feel like we're coming to the conclusion that maybe the debut was so good, it's just hard. Maybe we put them on too much of a pedestal.
You could be right. I mean, I just feel what the second album lacks from the first one. It's changed up and added new things that makes it special in its own way.
Yeah,
I think they're too different from one another to really compare that effectively, even though they are the same band and it's one album after the other. It feels like they've evolved a bit and they've gone down a route I didn't expect them to with this. I didn't expect them to lean into the aspects of the bands that they have lent into.
yeah,
Um, and I think it's one of those. I do think there'll probably be fans of the first album that maybe won't enjoy this one as much, but there'll also probably be a lot of new people that will get into Scimitar
yeah.
through this album and maybe won't be as interested in the one that they did first. In comparison, they might not think it's a bit maybe weak in comparison to it.
It's
One
an
thing that
interesting one, isn't it?
Well, one
Go on.
thing I will say, I think I might have even brought this up earlier, but one thing I will say about the sound of the first album is the thing they had about them that was that sort of that Jefferson Airplane kind of psych pop influence. I felt like the first album really lent into that,
Yeah, I feel like
and
that's
I
gone a
do
bit
feel
on
like
this.
I think it's gone quite a lot in this, really,
Yeah,
it's just so interesting they've gone down that route. I admire it as well that they decided to do that. I really thought they would have gone more that way for some reason on the second album.
yeah. Listen, if you have got to this point in this video, it's a long one. Thanks for sticking around. Didn't intend for this one to go on for as long as it has, but
It's quite rambly, wasn't it? I felt like I rambled quite a bit.
yeah, me too. To be honest, it's sorry for the rambling, guys. If you got to this point in this video and you did enjoy the content, give us a like. Let us know in the comments if you have checked this one out. If it like, how do you think it compares to like the first record? Do you prefer it? Maybe you prefer it. Maybe you're one of those that prefers the more discordant, heavy sound to the thinner, more blackened sound. I don't know. Let us know. But yeah, we put out content every Wednesday and Friday covering the latest black metal releases, and we'll hopefully catch you in the next one.